With Phoenix in the rear view, it's time to head east. We're heading to Bristol, baby. It's Bristol, baby weekend. Brian and I are here to recap all that was Phoenix, as well as get you set for the outright card and some early bets for Bristol. We'll get you set for all of that, as well as talk all that was Phoenix and talk a bunch of fun stuff. So let's jump into it.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, home from Phoenix. A very annoying race for many people.
Yeah.
So I guess let's just talk about the races in general, because it was not that fun of a race. And I think even with the shenanigans with the cars trying to pit and get ahead of cycle and then block boxing their way into flipping the field, the best car all day on Saturday ended up getting to victory lane. We saw some people sharing their tickets. Happy that all of you were able to get on Christopher Bell. I waxed poetic about him. Me and Brian both wrote him up in our newsletter, and I didn't have any exposure to him because his number got short, and I probably should have gone top Toyota or something. But Brian was lucky enough to jump on at a decent number before it really got cratered.
Yeah, and so I think that's also something I wanted to mention here is that sometimes our betting cards aren't indicative of what we actually had on action in terms of like post practice or something. We find a different number. Like, for instance, I tweeted out that I did bet Christopher Bell plus 750 after practice. But for show purposes, I did not put that on the card because when we recorded next time out, like his number was down to plus 550. And I'm not comfortable going down that low, especially when I already have action at a significantly better number. But it, like you said, the best car all day won the race. He did admit, however, that he had difficulty passing when cars were bunched together. It wasn't until like people started to string out that he was able to start making his moves. And you've heard a lot of people talk about it. If you listen to the teardown with Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi, they were both talking about how this is Phoenix. And as kind of a newbie to the sport, like I went back and I've watched a couple of the Phoenix races and they're exactly right. Like, this is what happens. You have maybe 3 to 4 guys that are able to move through the field while the rest of the cars are just get mired in traffic, and they go back tit for tat on certain corners, and they're constantly changing spots, but nobody's able to make up ground. And that's exactly what we had. I am happy that the best car actually won, even with the freaking 3 cautions we had in a matter of something like 23 laps there in stage 3, which, like you said, completely flipped the field and will have people looking at this race completely wrong when we get here on Championship Sunday in the fall, because there are a few drivers that had finishing results that were not, good measuring sticks of the way that they raced. And one of them was my favorite driver of the day, Ross Chastain, who had no business finishing anywhere near a top 5.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, there's a lot of discussion about kind of Phoenix being the championship race and a lot of people having frustrations. And I've never really truly understood, I think, until this week to understand. Like, I think the more we do this, the longer we are involved in watching NASCAR week in, week out, you really do gain much of an appreciation, an understanding of the sport and kind of all the things that goes into it. Because if you're a newbie, it's a lot, especially initially, and to try and dig down a level each time is really a challenge. So I think it was definitely a frustrating race. It was interesting to see some people did really well betting this race. And, we talk about it with Wormy. So, did you win the bet because it was a good bet, or did you win the bet because, you got lucky? And there's been times where we've gotten lucky and won a bet, and other times where we've gotten screwed and lost a bet, even though we were probably on the right side. So, It was definitely interesting. It was interesting to see the RFK cars find their way up front, and it was interesting to see some of the cars that were rolling around in the top 5. William Byron, Chase Elliott. When the field flipped, they were stuck. There was nothing they could do, and I do want to talk. We'll have to figure out Chase Elliott going forward because I am a little interested to see. Maybe he's just a guy that needs track position, and obviously Phoenix is kind of its own thing there. But like,
well, and so I'm kind of glad you hit on that because those two guys in particular really stood out to me in terms of drivers who suffered the largest like negative fallout from that chaotic, 25 lap period of multiple cautions, because William Byron and Chase Elliott, because of the track position they had to begin the race, they were going to finish inside the top 10 and they were threatening for a top 5, because I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but throughout the day, it was clear that the guys that were up front, no matter what car they were in, positions 1 through about 4, they all had a distinct advantage on the rest of the field in terms of aero, that they were able to drive away from the pack behind them, because the lead car would always get out to a decent sized lead, leaving the second place guy have clean air. And then the third place guy, if he wasn't battling for second and he was a second off the second place guy, he also was not fighting for position with multiple cars until they got in the traffic. And so I think when you look at people like them and their finishing results, or even a Kyle Larson who wasn't able to move back through the field, like, I don't think it tells you how good or how bad of a day they had. I just think they got screwed in terms of getting pushed back further. And then Tyler Reddick too. When he restarted on that last one, similar position as Christopher Bell, like obviously he didn't make up the spots that Bell did, but there was a point where he got started battling with Noah Gragson, which completely stalled his run out. And I think that really killed him. And that caused him to finish, I believe, 10th. So
yeah.
When we look at this race, finishing results, betting cards, like Kyle referenced, like you need to look at whether or not the bet was good in terms of you were on the right track. And did you hit it because it lucked, that you lucked out, or, you were on the right side and you just got screwed in terms of that last crap that happened.
Yeah. And I think Reddick was a better car than what we saw. A couple things. Ryan Stevens mentioned it on the NASCAR betting preview show. Hendrick's struggles at shorter tracks is documented.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's, we talked about kind of the issues that were occurring, but it really felt like, especially Byron and Elliott, they were going to run where they were going to run.
Exactly.
And if they got stuck in the back, that's where they were going to be. And if they were up front, that's where they were going to be. It was also interesting because they even mentioned this on the broadcast. These cars are being tuned for clean air because that's where the cars are currently running, and that's where they're pushing, and that's where they want to be. And when all of a sudden you get flipped and you're in the back, your car is set up one way, and it's like it'd be like taking your car from Phoenix and putting it at Richmond or putting it at Michigan and expecting it to run well. It's just not going to, because you've tuned it for a very specific setup for a very specific race profile.
Yep.
And when that goes away and you're thrown into the back, you have to completely throw out everything you've done, figure it out, and try and catch up. So it was really a wild day, kind of a frustrating day. And obviously, we didn't end up on the right guys. So we were, we could say, oh, we're better or whatever. But,
that's just the nature of,
I think we're pretty honest about when we win bets that maybe we shouldn't have, being honest about the race. So I hope people understand that. So let's look at DraftKings. Let's look at our betting card, and let's run through some of the results as they were. Denny Hamlin was on pace to be the guy you needed. He was dominating and then spun himself out. The mysterious ghosted banana peel, I'm not really sure, but ended up he was fine for DraftKings purposes, and obviously not the guy you needed. We like Chastain. He was good, but Chris Bell was right there and was much, much better.
Yep.
And I think pivoting to him from Chastain was probably the move. He was 13th instead of 12th. He was the best car on in practice, and probably should have been there. Reddick, like you mentioned, was solid. Ended up finishing 10th. Had a better car than that. I think if the car it doesn't get flipped on its head, I think he challenges all day. Bowman was fine. Suarez was pretty good. I was pretty happy with that. But much like a lot of the cars, he was just kind of whatever. So, and then Austin Dillon, like this dude, I think he's ran like a total of like 6 or 7 laps like all season, and we've had 4 races. He's constantly he's constantly wrecking out like within the first few laps.
I mean, this one totally wasn't his fault. This was Derek Krause just losing the tires. It was Krause's first time in the next gen car at Phoenix. It was also in a new short track package. Like there was just a storm brewing in the back with him driving now it seems like, worst tier colleague team. So, I don't know what to say about Austin Dillon. His season so far has absolutely sucked. RCR in total has been garbage. Like even Kyle Busch, he had a disastrous day himself. So, Dillon would have been fine. I probably would have cracked the top 25 or something, but it just him getting wrecked that quickly was not what we were looking for.
No, it was not good. So obviously, and we kind of worried about people being in the back and kind of getting stuck, but going out that early was definitely not on our bingo card, as they say. Obviously this one was much better. Christopher Bell, huge. Chastain, Chase Elliott, when they flipped the field, it was not good. Bubba Wallace, I don't know, kind of underwhelming week, honestly. Like I feel like we found some of the good stuff, but there's sometimes things out of your control that you just can't account for. So,
I think honestly for me, I think the two biggest benefactors of all of the shit that happened in stage 3 were Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher, because in my opinion, neither of those guys were a top 5 car all day. Chris Buescher was stuck in, 13th through 17th, pretty much the entire race. And Brad Keselowski, he manufactured track position with good pit stops and that type of stuff, which that's to be expected. But for anybody to come out here and try to tell me that Chris Buescher was a top 3, top 5 car, I think I'm going to call them on their bullshit and say they're full of shit, because he got there based on all of the wackiness that we saw in stage 3 that caused all of the guys that were up there all day to have to pit and then restart, 19th through 25th. So I still stand by what I said about Buescher and Keselowski and their starting positions. Like I didn't feel comfortable grabbing them, which obviously bit us in the ass because they were part of the luck group. But yeah.
Yeah, no, nothing about this race said they should be good. They would have probably been somewhere between 13 and 22. And
I mean, I do think that Keselowski probably would have gotten a top 10 because throughout the day, he had periodically moved up based on like pitting and all that stuff. But, whatever.
And of course, Joey Logano bites us in the ass.
Knew it. That guy.
Let's talk betting. Shout out Ryan Blaney.
Dude.
Pushing. Steals the top 5. The last lap. Gets around Chastain. Thought he might even pick it up.
I love Ryan Blaney, but I am so angry that he made that last lap pass on Ross Chastain, because my largest exposure for the weekend while I was in Phoenix and had legal sports betting from every book known to man was Ross Chastain top 5 at like plus 170 at numerous books. That single position cost me, let's just say, the cost of my entire trip almost to get to Phoenix.
Well, as somebody who had 4 units at plus 110 and then another 3 units when it went to 170, I was very happy to see that, because that salvaged like majority of my week. Like it still was a slightly down week, but
yeah, I did have action on Blaney top 5. Like obviously I didn't bet it for the card because I'm an idiot, but like I did have a play on that. But one thing I did want to mention is so on Sunday morning, I don't know if you don't follow me on Twitter, you missed out on a doozy. It was Martin Truex Jr. at plus money over Joey Logano at the end of stage 1, which was ridiculous for Caesars to post that when Truex started 10 spots ahead of Logano and they didn't have to pit. So that one got
yeah.
And then there was the other markets that they had effed up on, which I this is my first time betting in Arizona, so obviously I'm not worried about them capping my account. I went in and deposited a shitload of money and bet a whole bunch on like guys like William Byron, Ryan Blaney, and I think it was Ross Chastain to finish inside the top 10 at like plus 1,200 for all three of those guys. And I found like 3 or 4 groupings like that, bet a shitload of money on them. And then that craziness in stage 3 happened, and it cost me all of those bets that I should have been cashing and laughing at Caesar's store. So
and Truex was really good on Sunday. It's just he ended up getting stuck in a spot where he had to push his car because if he pit and then he would have lost all the
honestly, I don't care that cost him. That was the call. Mm-hmm. That was the correct call because
for sure. But like I think if you look at the finishing results versus kind of what we actually saw on the track, I don't think they match up well. So he obviously had to pit and try and salvage his day at the end. But I think he was a much better car that we saw. So overall, we're still up, Brian. I'm up almost 12 units. You're up almost 10 units. We're just going to keep plugging away and seeing what we can figure out. But I think, obviously, even with a frustrating week, we're still able to hit a few bets and kind of not absolutely get demolished. But I feel like you were either luck boxed your way into an amazing week or devastated, annoyed because you got crushed and all your guys got thrown to the back. Because it felt like Blaney of top 5 was a lock. It felt like Byron was right there. It felt like Chase Elliott top 10.
Well, and then the Chase Elliott top 10 bet, like I almost went on Sunday and somebody had posted it. It was like minus 115. And like I almost hit that for a really big amount just because of where he was starting. Like even if the car is not good, like everything that we heard in the garage and in the media center was that traffic sucked. And most drivers said it was worse than the previous package. And so for me, I took that as, well, shit, if you have track position, like you're going to stay there all day unless your car just falls apart, which, we saw that with a few guys, or you get the craziness that you can't predict like we saw on stage 3. So,
And Larson was actually the one that I didn't expect to be in the conversation. He was just
he was mediocre, honestly.
He was just like out to lunch all day. I don't know where he was. So,
yeah.
So that's the week. That is the recap. We'll dive into this week now because Bristol's here and the Food City 500. I'm actually really excited about this race.
Back to concrete, baby. Get rid of that dirt shit.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting discussions to be had. I think the book is squeezing us a little bit this week, which is not super fun. But we'll run through the outright card. We'll talk some of our favorite prop bets and give you some thoughts and then get out of here. So Hamlin 5, Bell 5, Larson 5, and then a jump. And then Blaney, Buescher, Keselowski, Byron, Reddick, and Gibbs all at 12-1. I guess, is there somebody from either of those groups that's jumping out to you as a potential value or that you're considering adding to the card?
Well, first of all, I'm not betting anybody at 5-1 before practice or qualifying. That's just not me. I don't do that. And then I do think there's some intriguing options in this next range. But for instance, Chris Buescher, he's really good here, but he sucks at qualifying at Bristol. He's never qualified better than 19th. So there is no reason to come and hit this number right now when you know that Christopher Bell, the Toyotas, and Kyle Larson are probably going to put their cars up on the front couple rows, well ahead of him. I think his ceiling for qualifying here is probably the bottom half of the top 10, which is not going to move the number. when you have guys that are favorites that are probably going to put it in front of him, their numbers are going to get shorter, which are just going to elongate somebody like him. Like,
Yeah.
I would much rather wait. And then I think the other two are Reddick and Ty Gibbs. Reddick doesn't have the history at Bristol, but let me tell you, Tyrone, as he's known on the NASCAR betting preview show, Gibbs, has been effing incredible. But I cannot for the life of me get down on 12-1 when we've seen what we've seen the last couple of weeks from this pit crew, from him. Like, until he finishes an entire race, I cannot bet at a number this short.
I'm really tempted to add it.
Believe me, I want to.
Really tempted.
I haven't seen it.
So in terms of average finish over the first month of the season, Tyrone Gibbs has the best average finish at 8.8.
He's kicking ass.
Then it's Chastain, Blaney, Truex, and Byron are your top 5. If you look at total speed, he was second with Denny Hamlin, ends up finishing 5th in the race, but was awesome all day. Tyrone is here. He is showing us he gets us. And he's just figuring things out.
That's awesome. Look, I want to. So he was actually the first name that I saw when I opened up our available offshore, and I was like, man, is that a number I can get action on and feel comfortable with it?
No, absolutely not. But I think the fact that he's priced where he's priced tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, but I feel like they're overcorrecting the market. Look, this is the same way that last year with Kevin Harvick at a bunch of races. He would be priced at 10, 11, at tracks that he was good at. But he had evolved into a guy that was really, really good, but just could not win.
Yeah.
And, I think the opposite could be said for Tyrone Gibbs, that his car is fast enough to win, but it's whether or not he can actually get it done in the end. Like, you saw how long it took Christopher Bell to get through all that bullshit he dealt with at the end of last year. And then finally he breaks through this weekend. Gibbs has so much in front of him that's preventing him from winning. Guys like Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, William Byron, like, at 12-1, I just don't know if I could bet that yet.
Oh, for sure. Like, no, it's definitely scary, but I think it's interesting, and I think
for sure
I'm gonna find exposure to him. I think, to your point, I'm probably waiting until qualifying, even if that means I'm betting him at 9. I just think there's so many names in and around him that if the RFK guys look great, if Blaney looks great, if Larson or Bell or Hamlin look awesome, he would have to put it on pole and look so much better for it to be like 7 or 8-1, I think. So I'm gonna try and be patient, but I think grabbing him in other spots, matchups, potentially top manufacturer, some of that kind of stuff, we'll find ways to get exposure to him, because he is on my short list of I need to get exposure to this guy and make him in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of what we saw from him in the fall last year, he definitely deserves to be one of these guys. He's one of 3 guys, I think, that led over 100 laps. Him, yeah. Christopher Bell, and Denny Hamlin, I believe. And
I feel like the books are kind of doing what they did last week, where they're going to put a bunch of the interesting names at not prices you want to dive in on. So it's like not worth grabbing really outrights at this point.
Yeah.
Is there any, like, the RFK guys are interesting to me. I'm going to find some way, especially Busher, to get some exposure. I'm not betting Larson or Bell or Hamlin at 5. Like, there's no way. And then we kind of talk about like Reddick and Gibbs as the guys, maybe even Byron a little bit at 12. That's kind of interesting.
Well, I think it's also important to remember, like, we're not running the short track package here. So what they just ran in Phoenix, that is not what they're using here in Bristol. This is like a combination of the intermediate with a specific tire set that they run at Bristol and I believe a couple other tracks. So when I go back to that, I think, okay, Toyotas are going to be, again, the car to beat here. And then maybe the Fords late, but, qualifying wise, we didn't see greatness from Ford either in Vegas outside of the Penske guys.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I got to look. Oh, I want to look at top fives. I think there's some opportunity there. But yeah, no, in terms of the outright market, I don't think there's anybody that I'm even really considering. Are you adding anyone at this current price to your card?
Well, so one bet that I did, I made 2 bets already. One of those numbers has absolutely gotten demolished. The other one that I like this week is Tyler Reddick. If you can get him, okay, yeah. So at Bet Rivers, he's still available at 14-1. I don't mind betting that. Tyler Reddick has the pedigree of a driver who's already won in the Cup Series. He's been runner-up multiple times essentially this year. I'll just give him a runner-up last week in Phoenix if it wasn't for the craziness that happened. And so I don't mind getting to him at that 14 number, but 12, even that number, I don't mind Reddick at 12 either.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to convince myself that there's opportunity here, but I really don't feel it. I don't.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna add Reddick at 14.
Let me ask you a question.
I might have an answer.
Chase Elliott 20-1.
Dude, when I saw his line at 18 on our favorite BOV ... I almost hit it. But I don't know if I'm a victim of the moment and just think oh, he's eventually got to turn it around, or if that's a legit, this guy could pop. And then I went and I've researched Bristol, and Chevys absolutely suck here.
Yeah, but this is a guy who's won here, been inside the top 5, even last year where he was having a shitty season and struggling. He and managed to get a 7th. I don't know. I just it's he of all the options that actually sort of interest me, he's the one. Especially if you can get 20-1 or longer. That's where I'm sort of interested, because if he qualifies well, and something he has done in the past, he's qualified in the top 10 at every race. I think that's an all-star race. Bristol's weird because it's usually in September, and they flipped it on the schedule back to March, and it used to be April, and now it's September.
Well, because they removed the 2 concrete races, and they did this stupid dirt shit, which some people like it. I didn't like it.
It's a novelty thing. If it's fun for people to get in, and obviously a lot of these guys grew up on dirt, so it became one of those things that was kind of fun. But from a bettor's perspective, it's definitely not predictable and not something you really want to get aggressive on.
Well, I also think it's too far removed from what these guys do on a weekly basis that stick to concrete. Even the street race is closer to anything that they do than dirt is to.
It'd be like the NFL had week 7 was the sand football week, and everybody played on the beach.
Exactly.
Nobody that or NBA had a month where they played in the pool, and everybody played pool basketball instead of regular basketball. No, that's not. I don't know. It's fun. It's interesting, but no.
Yeah.
Chase Elliott's the one that's jumping out to me. As we dive down, is there any potential outrights if you're looking for the number? And I'll talk about him and Michael McDowell. I don't think I'm going to bet him outright. But in terms of speed, this guy was awesome last year. He finished 6th. Was good all day, the whole race. in the next gen car. He wasn't as good in 2022, but was much better last year, and he's in a much better car this year, so it could even improve on that. So McDowell, once again, probably not somebody that I'm going to be betting outright, but wouldn't fault anyone who went there, and I'm looking to get exposure. I'm just trying to figure out how.
Well, you can group the guy right above him, Chase Briscoe, into the same exact conversation, because both of these guys are still being undervalued in terms of coming into this week, knowing how well that they've qualified of late as well. Yeah. These numbers are not going to be here come race day on Sunday. And then I also think for Briscoe's purposes, like, he opened at like 80, or I think he opened at 100 in some places, which I'm kind of sad I didn't get that number. I jumped on it at 80 on our offshore, and it immediately got bet down to this 50 number. And last week when I talked about how Briscoe, this seems to be more similar to his 2021 season where he was qualifying or 2022 season when he was qualifying really well than it was last year where SHR were absolute freaking dump trucks during, Friday and Saturday stuff. So these long numbers pre-race are good to get on for value wise. And then you can come back and potentially hedge in a matchup or something like that.
Well, and it's good too, because even if you don't want to bet them outright, if you just want to bet them on, placings or maybe manufacturer, maybe something like that, you're going to get better numbers with the longer outrights too. So obviously, even if you don't want to bet them at 50 or 60 or 70, there's still going to be opportunity if you want to get involved. So
yeah, exactly.
So in terms of outrights, I think I'm good. I haven't added Chase Elliott yet, but I'm really, really tempted. It's just like, I didn't think I'd be Chase Elliott guy this year, but here we are.
I mean, for the guy that named him average ass Chase Elliott, this is very surprising.
So I talked about McDowell. As we look at the top 10 market, obviously these numbers suck for the majority. But I am adding McDowell to top 10. DraftKings has plus 240. You can see 230 here at Caesars. I like that. I like pretty much anything north of 2-1.
I don't hate that
for a top 10. I think he'll be solid. I think he'll be probably in the 5 to 10 range all day. I think he'll qualify well. We've seen how good he's been at qualifying all year. We can look at actually qualifying bets to see if that's something. But I think maybe he doesn't put it on the poll, but I think he's inside that top 10, and I think he can be there majority of the day. So. Top 10 at plus 240 at DraftKings. I love that.
All right, I'm gonna ride with you on that, and then I'm also gonna hit the Briscoe number. We're going down that freaking path once again with Chase, but
Chase Elliott at even money to top 10 is kind of interesting.
I don't know if I could do it, man. Like, I think he's going to be a strong car, but I think I'm in a spot with Elliott where I need him to prove that he could be a front runner again in order for me to want to back him at those short odds. Like, honestly, for the way that they've been performing so far this season, I think McDowell should be the guy that's at plus money and not Chase Elliott. Like at even. You know what I mean? It's just in terms of overall performance, like McDowell's been much more consistent than a lot of the guys that we see above him on the odds board.
Well, and the fact that he's minus 135, it makes him even more compelling that you can get him at even money. I'm going to add it. I want some Chase Elliott in my life. And
Kyle's going down Kyle has gone off the deep end, folks.
Oh yeah, no, I'm gone. I talked about him last week. I talked about him this week. I need to get some serious help, but Caesars is going to give me even money to bet him to top 10. I will join that.
Yeah. I mean, hey, the top 10 numbers on Caesars this week are actually much better than what like BetMGM has. BetMGMs are atrocious.
Yeah. Like Byron minus 160, Reddick minus 150 isn't terrible. I don't know. Top fivers, anything there? Oh, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, I want to look at matchups because
I think I want to. I think I'm gonna do it again. It's such a gross number. Is minus 130 the best I can get on a top fiver from Kyle Larson? Let's see. It appears to be the case. Yeah, he's like minus 200 at DraftKings.
good Lord, DraftKings
Really screwing people this week. What other books could we look at? Let's see. Superbook. Do they have top fives or are they just still at top threes? Yeah, plus 165 to top three. I'd much rather have a top five.
Yeah, so I also remember when I started doing my initial research for this race real fast, this was the race that Larson had to start in the back, and and I was completely fading him like, oh, he's going to have too much ground to make up. And he wound up finishing second.
Yeah, minus 130 at bet 365. All right, I'm gonna add top three. I'm gonna add Larson top five. My betting card is I'm not keeping myself in check this week. This is not good. This could be a long week, but like I said, I'm not hitting outrights. I'm just hitting placements. I have a couple matchups that I want to talk about here in a minute. But yeah. All right, so should we look at matchups then?
Yeah. I wanted to look at the matchup market because
I'm gonna pull up Superbook too because they had some good matchups that I want to hit on. Let's see. So I know not everybody can access Superbook, but I did want to hit on a couple that I think are interesting. The first one is Larson over Byron, Larson over Bell. Reddick at plus 100 over William Byron, I think, is interesting.
I just have a hard time fading a guy like Byron.
Mm-hmm. So my first one is Christopher Buescher over Ross Chastain. Ross has not been good here. This is not a place where he typically thrives. Typically pretty slow. Like in speed rankings in 2023, he was 24th. He started out 14th and just got significantly slower. In the next gen era, he has, where's Ross? A 10th in 22 and then 24th in 23 in terms of total speed ranking. So, been pretty average. Where Buescher has average speed ranking of 4th, which is tied for 3rd. Average speed ranking of 4, which is tied for 3rd. He was 2nd and 6th respectively. Like Buescher a lot. I mentioned I want to get some exposure to him. Wasn't going to hit the outright market, but did grab that. I also grabbed Buescher over Kyle Busch. It's minus 125, but I'm fine with that. As iFantasy Race points out, he was 20th in 2023. It was a legit dud, not good. In 2022, he was 34th, 3rd in stage 1, 5th in stage 2, but had an engine failure. So not really his fault. 2021, flat tire on 455 while running 5th. And then was better, but like with RCR and kind of the trajectory he's been on and the bevy of issues, I just don't trust him at all. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like the way to lean. So I Buescher over Ross and Buescher over KFB at minus 110, minus 125.
I don't hate either of those.
I also took Ty Gibbs over Chastain at -110. Fading Ross, fading KFB, on Gibbs, on Busher. So if you
How
can
could you
find some
fade Watermelon
combination,
Man?
huh?
How could you fade the king of like? He has become a maestro in finishing well, whether he has a good car or not.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's second best average finish, but I just don't think this is a place for him. And I just think the other guys are so much better that it's hard to get to him.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. Just because this is the type of track where it rewards guys who have friends, I guess you would say, more
Yeah,
so
and
than
as he
guys.
said, he doesn't even have friends, even when he's trying to get a little extra support at the front. So, and Austin Dillon won't be in the conversation to help him out.
Yeah.
Let's go over here. Alex Bowman versus Truex. Truex a big favorite. I don't know they should be that big of a
That's
favorite.
qualifying.
Oh yeah, good call. Um,
I don't hate Christopher Bell over Denny Hamlin in qualifying.
no, I don't either.
At even money,
Chase Briscoe plus 105 over McDowell.
I'd rather just hit the qualifying pole market for them. I wouldn't even bother with
Let's
that.
do that. So Chase versus Logano, Ty Gibbs versus Keselowski. They're both kind of up there for me. Ross versus Bush. Busher versus Reddick. They really are putting a lot of the guys. Oh, this is the winner right here. Briscoe versus Gragson. -115 either side.
That's pretty scary though, man. Gragson's been really good.
You're scared of Noah Gragson?
Dude, he's been good.
Oh, we got Dinger this week? Let's go.
Yeah, he's driving the Mountain Dew Cheetos number 16 Colin car. It's a pretty sick paint scheme.
It's nice having the Dinger. I wish he was riding full time again, but I'm sure there's reasons for it.
Okay, folks. It is time.
Oh no.
I'm jumping off of the Joey Logano wagon.
Oh no.
And betting Brad Keselowski.
Oh
over
no.
Logano -1.
Hey, Brad K. Fade him. What about Bubba Wallace versus Eric Jones? Bubba's been pretty good here. 14th. I mean, I guess he hasn't been that great.
He's all right.
Yeah, he's been better the last two times. But Eric Jones has been pretty decent too, so I don't know. It's probably not.
Yeah, but like Jones for me is not somebody that I trust to.
McDowell over Bowman, 15.
Yeah, I actually looked into that, but
Bowman's been pretty decent.
Yeah, but -115. I don't think it should be. I think they should be the -110. I don't think. I think Caesars is kind of baiting you into paying them more money.
Oh yeah, no, all the books are. It's stupid.
Yeah, because that to me doesn't seem like a good number. I think the next market, like we have to talk about the manufacturer.
Okay, let's go look at manufacturer poll bets, and then we're gonna hit on the championship odds. Our goal is to hit on it like once every 4 weeks. So if we forget to do that, make sure you remind us. But we can definitely make a point of that. So Larson at +110. Should I be betting Larson at +110 instead of him to top 5 at -130?
I mean, there's a really good chance that he finishes 5th and he's the top finishing Chevy. Because Toyotas are going to be really strong, and the Ford camp has a lot of guys that are good here.
And the only person that I'm really scared about beating him is Byron.
Yeah, not Chase?
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to get really funky, you could just bet Chase Elliott plus 750 here. Like if you like Elliott to win the race, or at that 20-1 number, I think backing it up with a top Chevy play isn't a bad idea either.
I like where your head's at. So I'm not betting him to top 10. I'm betting him to top Chevy at set plus 750. And I'm not betting Larson to top 5. I'm betting Larson at plus 110 to top Chevy.
Cancel that. You can get plus 160 at Bet Rivers for Larson, top Chevy.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bet Rivers. Yeah, no, that's 100% the move. That's
Elliott is plus 950.
Jesus.
At Superbook.
Let's go. Thank you, Brian. That is why you pay to shop, my friends.
Yeah, there's
and that's why you look at all these numbers, because like you have to do would I rather top 3, top 5, top manufacturer, figure it out. Especially when I just talked about how I don't like Kyle Busch, I don't like Ross Chastain, Bowman's fine. I don't trust any of these guys to really challenge. So when you're giving me a good number, like even what's the Byron number at Superbook? It's got to be pretty decent.
He's plus 475.
It's not bad.
But he's plus 485 at Bet Rivers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's compelling.
I find it interesting that books are pricing Kyle Busch ahead of Chase Elliott based on results that he had here like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Versus now they're in the same manufacturer car. RCR is a level below Hendrick, and Chase Elliott is not as bad. Okay. I just talked myself into a matchup if I can find it. Give me Chase Elliott over Kyle Busch.
I thank them for their service. Yeah, let me know if you can find it, because I will add that as well.
Yeah, I want to shop that. Let's see if I can get that.
While you do that, let's look at top Toyota. Christopher Bell 2-1, Denny Hamlin 2-1.
Ty Gibbs and Tyler Reddick are. I'm going to add both of those. I know Bet Rivers, I believe, has the best number.
So Superbook has 6-1 on both of them.
Oh. I didn't find Chase Elliott over Kyle Busch yet, but I found Elliott over Logano, which is going on the card.
Ooh, I like that too. Yeah, if you find any good Chase Elliott head-to-heads, drop them in the comments so we know where to look. Yeah, I think Reddick and Gibbs are both interesting options at 6-1, but they do have some stiff competition with Hamlin and Chris Bell. So
yeah, 6.25 for Reddick and Gibbs at Bet Rivers.
I like those. Top Ford, Blaney at 230, Keselowski 260, Buescher 260, and then it really falls off. McDowell at 14-1.
Huh?
McDowell at 14-1. It's kind of interesting.
Superbook. Keselowski and Buescher at 305. McDowell at 16-1.
Adding it.
Buescher at Bet Rivers plus 350. I'm adding that one.
Okay. I think that makes sense. Oh. I think I added it on your line instead of mine. Let's see.
That's all right. I just changed it. Kyle's messing with our sheet, folks.
I'm trying to update the sheet with all my bets because I'm way overexposed. But 16-1 is a good gamble, and like I said, I don't want to bet McDriver to win the race, but like if he has a decent race at 16-1 and is the top Ford, like obviously I like the RFK guys. And Blaney was, he's really good. But outside of those, like even Briscoe at 21-1 is pretty nice.
Yeah.
I think that's a good spot to get exposure to somebody that, you really like and you think can perform really well, but maybe not necessarily win the race because of whatever.
Yeah, but I think like with Briscoe, I'd rather bet him top 10 at like the 2.5.
Yeah,
Because it offers so much more possibilities of hitting than him having to finish as the top 4, which is probably going to be a top 5 bet.
Yeah, I think Briscoe like 3 units or 2 units on the top 10 number, and then just like a quarter of a unit or even less, third of a unit, 10th of a unit on 21 to 1 is just a fun. Like if he overshoots the top 10, then you're even more excited.
Yeah.
Let's look at fastest qualifier.
Ooh.
We'll look at championship odds and then we'll get out of here. So McDowell is 9.5 to 1. That's crazy. The books don't want to get caught with their pants down again. So, and that tells you that if they think he can qualify that well, he could easily stay there.
Well, also too, they're telling on themselves that whatever number they have McDowell posted at for an outright, that number is going to get shorter if they have him inside 10 to 1 to qualify on the pole. So that is like a good indication. If you want to bet McDowell on an outright, bet it now and then come back and then maybe hedge against him later.
Yeah. And if you don't think he's going to qualify well, then he's just somebody to avoid completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't love really. Is any of these numbers really jumping out to you as potential options?
No, because I think this week more than the outright market, we're getting squeezed even more because we
have to come all the way down here to get like a 12 or a 14. We're not even. Hocevar.
Yeah, those should be at like the 20, the 20 number, not 12.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk championship futures and see what we can do. So Larson, you can still get him at plus 550, which is decent considering he won at like 6 and it got immediately cratered. Now it's kind of climbing back up. He's a big favorite. He's one of the favorites this week. So obviously could win, that could go away. So if you want some Larson exposure, plus 550 is not too bad. Byron 6.5. Hamlin, like Denny, especially at Phoenix, a place where he struggles. He's hard to get to at such a short number. Like he could absolutely be the championship 4. I would much rather bet him there if you think he's going to have a strong season and get to Phoenix with a shot than bet him at 6.5. The 8's fine, but even then, like I don't know. I don't love him for I'd much rather bet Christopher Bell, especially having the win at 9 or even 8.5 than Denny at 8.
Yeah, I think Bell is probably a better number because he already has. Well, I mean, they both got wins, but
yeah. So championship futures currently. I have Chase Elliott on the card at 9. I have Ross Chastain at 20 and Keselowski at 16. You have Elliott, Logano, and Chastain. Neither of us have Kyle Larson. Neither of us have William Byron.
I didn't write it down. I have Larson at that plus 740 number, but that was like a sneaky bet by myself that I.
Oh yeah, no, we both grabbed him in real life, but he's not on the card officially. Blaney at 12, back to back. He's been so good.
Yeah, but what if he goes through a portion of like this summer where he sucks? Like
I'm happy. Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm happy we have Chastain at 20. He's 12. There's a 16 out there apparently at BetRivers. We talked about it last year. It is interesting that the Hendrick guys tend to struggle mid-season when other teams kind of rack up wins. So you might be able to get a decent Elliott number, a decent Byron number. I don't know that you'll get a good Larson, but number. Maybe you can get 8 on Byron. Maybe you can get 12 on Elliott. Maybe 13 by then. So I think those are interesting. Tyler Reddick is someone we've talked about off pod a couple times. Is the 16's the best you can get. I really like him. I really think he has a lot of places where he can do well, and obviously Texas is coming up. There's a few places where he could easily get his win, and that number could get shorter, but it's also hard to get him, especially like if you have to bet the 14 or the 12. Like that feels short.
Yeah, I don't hate Reddick. Honestly, I feel like, again, Tyrone Gibbs at 25-1 is not a number that I could have envisioned myself even considering, but knowing how strong he was in Phoenix, if he somehow luck boxes his way into a championship race, he's not going to be that far off from the favorite in that event. Like you've heard Denny Hamlin say it that he's going to be winning races here very soon.
Yeah, and it's just the question of, do we think if we're a little more patient, we can get 30 on him?
I don't know if his number is going to get longer. Like, for instance, we're talking about Gibbs this weekend in Bristol as somebody to watch out for. Say he goes out and he wins this race.
Yeah.
This is coming off two races prior to that where he was one of the fastest cars on track. At a legit short track and an intermediate in Vegas.
Oh, NASCAR.
You know what I mean? Like,
let's see. So his number, I'm adding him to make the championship for it plus 475.
I'm going to add that 25-1 number.
That's probably a better bet. I have a hard time seeing him.
Hey, we've seen guys before second year. Like this happens in sports all the time. Rookie seasons, guys struggle, blah, blah, blah. And then they really come into their own in their second seasons.
Yeah. I just feel like they're like in a position, like he's going to be one of those guys kind of like Bell has been the past couple of years, where even if he gets to Phoenix with a chance, like it's going to be hard for him to seal the deal. But yeah, I think if you like Keselowski, 4-1's fun. Ross Chastain 375, Reddick at 325. Some of these numbers are really interesting. And that's just to make the final four.
I also just added a very interesting race prop for Sunday.
So if you like any of these championship futures, if there's somebody you think we should be jumping on at their
I like
current
Ty Gibbs. I still think. I talked about Reddick, and we talked about it last week prior to Phoenix. I think it was somewhere around the same price. It was like 16 or maybe 18. He's going to be the favorite next week in Coda. So
let us know down in the comments who you're betting, who you like.
I think I'm going to add the Reddick number. I don't think no, I don't think it's long enough. I'm not going to do it. I'd rather bet him outright, especially when he's still being posted at like 12-1 numbers. Yeah. I think you could just roll over those and wind up ahead more than betting him on that right now.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's recap our bets. Give the people our favorite bet as we sit here right now, and then we'll get out of here. So my card is too long for right now, but it's fine. McDowell top 10 plus 240, Buescher over Ross Chastain, Buescher over KFB, Ty Gibbs over Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott top Chevy at 950, Kyle Larson top Chevy at plus 160. I really like the top 5 number, but minus 130 makes me feel gross when I can get plus 160, and he probably is in the same range. And then Ty Gibbs for top Toyota at 16-1 are all on the card.
16-1. Where'd you get that?
Superbook.
I thought it was 6.25.
Did I not put that down right?
Kyle's trying to
sneak one by the goalie.
Yeah, I highly doubt he's 16.
He's 6-1. I think maybe I had.
Yeah, he's 6.25 at Bet Rivers. That's the number you want.
Okay, well, we'll put that down. Bet Rivers. I was struggling with technology apparently. Brian has. Let me see if I can slide over. Tyler Reddick to win the race at 14. He has McDowell to top 10 plus 240. Briscoe to top 10 at plus 250. Brad K over Logano at minus 120. Elliott over Logano at minus 110. Reddick as top Toyota at plus 625. Gibbs top Toyota plus 625. Busher top Ford at plus 350. And the driver to win stage 1 and stage 2 at 6-1, which is a sneaky prop, Brian. What is that? Is that your favorite bet as we sit here right now on Tuesday?
So I went back and I looked really quick back to, it was either 2020 or 2021. And I think this has only happened once since then at Bristol Concrete. But the reason why I wanted a little action on this is because the winner of stage 1 had finished, I think, top 3 or won the stage in every single subsequent Bristol race since then. So, including last year when Christopher Bell swept the first 2 stages. So I do think that this is a bet where the guy who wins stage 1 is likely going to be there at the end of stage 2. And it's just a matter of whether or not he can get there and cross the finish line before the next guy who's probably going to be as strong. But at 6-1, hell yeah, I want a little bit of action on this.
I think it makes sense, especially if like Bell or Larson or someone looks really dominant.
Yeah, exactly.
I could see them being the guy for the most of the race. So that's a great bet. I like Larson as top Chevy, and I like McDriver as top 10. I think those are my 2 favorite bets, at least at this point.
Keselowski over Logano is my favorite bet right now.
Yeah.
That's
a bet. Load up on Joey this week and win all the money when Keselowski spins out on lap like 16.
Exactly.
That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. Enjoy the rest of your race week. We will be back on Sunday morning in your YouTube feed, on your podcast feed to get you set for the race. Make sure you're subscribed to the Substack. We're looking for more people to do that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like the video if you enjoy the content and made it this far. Tell your friends, tell your parents, tell whoever watches NASCAR is interested in NASCAR. Join the GridRivals if you've yet to do that. You can still jump in. You can still win a $100 gift card. All the things. I'll link it all in the description. That's Brian. I'm Kyle. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.